Seen a flood of damning revelations emerge in recent days from 3 new books all about the final year of the Trump administration. Among other things, we're learning how many people close to Trump genuinely believed he was dangerous, especially in the weeks approaching January 6th. Now, those books could potentially serve as something of a roadmap for the House Select Committee, providing investigators with new lines of inquiry as they probe the causes of the January 6th insurrection. For instance, they may want to speak to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley. According to Washington Post reporters Carol Linick and Phil Rucker, Milley took steps to prevent a potential coup and even linked Trump's big lie to Hitler's rise to power. That theme also came up in the book, Frankly, We Did Win This Election, the inside story of how Trump lost, by Michael Bender of the Wall Street Journal. Now, Bender reports that as Trump purged the ranks of the Pentagon to install his handpicked loyalists, Secretary of State Pompeo and General Milley believed some of Trump's new hires were conspiracy theorists and discussed whether others might have links to neo-Nazi groups. Now, that's not to mention the astonishing fact that, according to Bender's sources, Trump himself once told his chief of staff that Hitler did a lot of good things. None of that has seemed to bother Republicans. Absolutely nothing. They all still worship at the altar of Trump. That includes House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, or should we say House Minority Follower, who made a pilgrimage to Trump's club in New Jersey just yesterday. Joining me now to discuss this and more, Michael Bender, senior White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal and author of Frankly, We Did Win This Election, the inside story of how Trump lost, and my friend, former RNC chairman, Michael Steele. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Michael, I want to start with you. Your book was obviously full of revelations, but I have to say, this stuff was not necessarily surprising. We saw crazy play out in real time every day of this administration. It was interesting seeing it all play out here. I'm curious, as the author through your reporting, what surprised you most, given all the crazy that we saw? What surprised you most when you were uncovering the end of his administration?
No, it's a really good question, and you're right. The story of kind of crazy and chaos of the Trump administration and the Trump White House is one that's well known. You don't have to be a White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal to know that. I knew it all too well. I wrote 1,000 stories, literally 1,000 stories for the Wall Street Journal over the 4 years of this Trump administration. But what struck me a lot when I was reporting this book was not the chaos. It was that the senior people around Trump thought he was dangerous for the country, that he'd become violent and unhinged in his desperation to hold on to office. He wanted to shoot Americans. He told them to shoot Americans who were protesting peacefully civil rights abuses, civil justice abuses. You mentioned Pompeo. Pompeo left others with the impression that he thought Trump might want to lean into an international conflict to strengthen his argument for remaining in office. These were pretty shocking revelations, and I thought well beyond the sort of day-to-day chaos that we were used to on the outside.
Well, I want to stick with you here for a minute because you talk about Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and I remember after the election was called and people were still wondering what was going to happen because Trump had not conceded, Mike Pompeo stood on the world stage and said, we are prepared to continue the next 4 years. What did you uncover about his unwillingness, even though he allegedly thought Trump was crazy, he on the stage was not saying that? What did you uncover about their willingness to align themselves with this MAGA madman?
Yeah, I mean, not only Pompeo organized a daily call with General Milley, who you mentioned, and also the Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, in order to keep a check on temperatures and try to make sure that the international situations were that tensions were low. I mean, I think what happened here is that I talked to a lot of people around Trump who viewed themselves as truth tellers to the president. I mean, they thought they were the guardrails around him. But then when you actually do the reporting and talk to the people in the room and who heard these conversations, everyone kind of had their own way to hedge. I'm thinking about Mike Pence and the run up to January 6th, where Trump was pushing him. This is a scene detailed in the book, pushing him to overturn the election results. And Pence and his team thought that they had been very clear with the president. But what Pence had told him was, I don't think there's any authority here for me to do what you're asking. But if your legal team has come up with a different analysis, we'll take a look at anything. Mike Pence is a polite and man. He thought he was being respectful. But Trump hears that second part, right? And when I interviewed him, President Trump down in Mar-a-Lago, and asked him if Pence had ever told him he wasn't going to overturn the election, Trump told me no, he hadn't.
Wow. Well, Mike Pence may be polite. It doesn't make him any less culpable in all this that happened. Michael, I have to ask you, the other Michael Steele, make this make sense. I mean, I'm petty enough to say 8,000 more times, we tried to tell you. But now that other people seem to have caught on, why are Republicans still beholden to this crazy person? He's mental.
Yeah, but, you know, they picked up 11, 12 House seats, and they drew the Senate to a draw, and they're positioned to take the House and the Senate next year. Where's the downside? Michael, in his great reporting and incredible book, has laid out the narrative. As you opened up the conversation, we saw it real time, and now we can connect a lot of dots that were, behind the scene. And there was no accountability. Who was accountable for the last 4 years, 5 years? Who's been accountable for that? There was no penalty paid by Republicans. And until there is, there will be no accountability. There will be no change in behavior. It's like raising a bad child, that you refuse to do the very thing you need to do to get them on the straight and narrow, and sit there and wonder, well, why hasn't their behavior changed? Well, because you haven't discipline them. You have not made them pay a consequence or price for their bad behavior. And until the voters do that, voters need to stop complaining and wondering why Republicans are behaving and acting the way they are, because you're giving them the license. Doesn't matter what state it is, there is no national outcry against what Republicans have wrought over the last 4 years, culminating on January 6th, to the point that they just brazenly said, we don't even want to do an investigation, and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. That's where we are. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say at this point, except, we got to change that. And the way you change it, hold them accountable.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy to me that after all this country has done to people who look like you and me, that we can stand here and be the bigger patriots because people prioritize power over patriotism. But we have to leave it right there.
They hold us accountable in a heartbeat.
They hold us accountable, and we disproportionately suffer at the hands of this kind of craziness and policy. So we have to leave it right there. But thank you so much, Michael Bender. Your book is great. I encourage people to get it. And Michael Steele, thank you.